Welcome to Election Watch 2015. I'm your host, Teresa Wippel. In the studio with us, we have Carin, who is running for Edmonds School Board District 1. Carin, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to come down.
Now, you have lived in Edmonds for a while, so it'd be great for you to talk about your background and why you decided to run for school board.
Sure, wonderful. Well, I've been in Edmonds since Chase has been in third grade, so I've been very actively involved in the school as both a volunteer, excuse me, a parent. He's now in Montlake Terrace High School. Started volunteering in the classroom, loved it so much, started joining the parent-teacher associations, offering extracurricular classes and civic engagement for the classes as we move through the school district, and also been working as a paraeducator. And so, along with those things directly in the school, and my work as doing sound public policy advocacy work outside the school district, this was a natural fit to me, and I felt that I could better serve the community of the Edmonds School District by serving on the board.
Okay. And I think it always, for people who have run for school board in the past, my experience has been that, having a child in the schools inspires you to get more involved than you probably realize you wanted to at first, right?
Well, I think that one of the things as parents we want to do is be good role models.
Yeah.
And engagement and participation is one thing that I really want to show is important as you're continuing on in your life after school. And so with Chase being in high school, I think this would be a good opportunity for me to show that, we are active and engaged. And education is a family affair.
Okay. And the seat that you're running for is actually an open seat.
Yes.
So it's kind of a clean slate in some ways. If you could name, I'd like to just kind of take a look at, if you could name top 3 accomplishments as you look at the Edmonds School District and the things that the district has done over the years, the top 3 accomplishments and the top 3 challenges that the district is facing in the next 5 years,
In the next 5 years? Well, I think challenges are easy right now.
Yeah.
I mean, education funding, trying to make do with some of the mandates without adequate funding is a real challenge to the school districts. And so that is, I think, one of the paramount challenges. Some of the accomplishments that I'm actually really impressed with the strategic directions planning that the school board's been advocating. They're seeking community involvement on their strategic direction plan. As a matter of fact, looking for more community involvement on the they have, I believe, it was 4 tiers. One is all students learning every day. That's, of course, there's the theme. The graduate-ready students, the early learning, and equity, which is access for all students. And these are workforces and these are the task forces that we are actively engaging the community with, because one of the duties of the school board is to actively be the conduit between the community and the policies that the district adopts. And so I think this is a really good way for the district to proceed in doing that. It's going to be interesting to see as we move forward on this, particularly with the challenges faced with, are we going to really be able to have the funding to reduce class size, to implement the full day kindergarten? And so those are, some of the challenges and the ways that I'm really proud of what the school district has been doing.
Yeah, and full day kindergarten is an interesting topic. There are some school districts that have implemented full day kindergarten a few years ago and have been paying for it, on their own, right? Not waiting for state funding. And my understanding is that the Edmonds School District has some schools that are getting that through free and reduced lunch, I think, percentage. That's how they've decided who gets it. But is that something that you think, obviously early learning has gotten a lot of attention lately, and the importance of getting kids school ready, early. Is that something that you think maybe could have happened sooner in terms of having more funding, trying to figure out a way to fund that earlier district-wide?
Well, it is interesting trying to look back at how the decisions were made on how that funding was implemented. We, of course, know that early intervention and early activities for kids is one of the benchmarks of success. Now, my understanding is with some of the decisions were, rather than to quickly implement the full-day kindergarten, Edmonds School decided to work on decreasing the class size, increasing the classroom so that it'd be fully ready when it is, I believe it's 2018, that the full-day kindergarten is going to be implemented for the entire state. Yes, I wish that it were fully funded right now. However, I can understand with the challenges that throughout the district, looking at the whole district and helping everyone, that reducing the class size and getting ready was the decision that was made.
Yeah, right, because when you do that, you have to have places to put all those kids.
You do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Let's talk a little bit about the Common Core state standards. You know, those who are parents probably have heard a lot about Common
Right,
Core,
right.
but those who haven't may not realize that basically national K12 standards that emphasize career and college readiness. And in some communities, they've generated some controversy. Do you have an opinion about where we're going with that? If that's a good idea, bad idea, different options that you think maybe we should be looking at?
Sure, that's actually a really good question, because I think what we need to think about, first off, when we're talking about standards and core, is that we want to look at the values, and the value is we want each individual student to succeed. And when you have a national standard that is not directed individually, either at a school district, by a teacher or community, it is really difficult to see how if that's going to actually help a student succeed by this one measurement. Everybody is different. And yes, we need to have a rigorous curriculum, but we also need to have benchmarks and measures of success that do a feedback for the teachers and students to see how they can fully succeed. Because as we know, there's multiple pathways to success. And one national standard is not going to adequately address the individual needs of each student. And so I'm not opposed to having a standards and curriculum, but I think it needs to be more community-based, teacher-directed, with feedback back that's meaningful for the students.
So let's talk about an issue that has gotten quite a bit of attention lately, and that is the decision by the school board to move forward with installing turf fields up at the old Woodway High School that are using recycled tire crumbs. That's something that some parents and community members have been upset about, because there have been some anecdotal studies of cancer clusters among soccer goalies who have played on crumb rubber. There have been some, speculation that this could cause some environmental damage from the runoff from the fields and that kind of thing. The school board made a decision earlier this spring to go ahead and move forward with that, despite some of the protests. Now, if you were on the school board at the time, not wanting to necessarily play Monday morning quarterback, but how do you think maybe it could have been handled a little differently? I mean, there were options
Right.
the board looked at besides other turf, other wait and see, those kinds of things. What would you have done differently, do you think, or just how are you thinking this should move forward too? Because it doesn't seem to be going away.
Sure, that's a really great question, because it is obviously an issue of concern with a lot of people down, not only parents, but people are concerned about the environment. So what the issue is the infill that's being used is made from recycled tires. There doesn't seem to be a lot of controversy that, yes, people want to have fields in that you can use at night, that people can use more often, get moving. But the infill is made from recycled tires. And that we know is an unregulated product, and we know it has carcinogens. And this is not just a local issue, it's getting a lot of national attention. The schools over in Kitsap just recently put in their own artificial turf using a natural product that has no carcinogens. And so the big issue for me, whether I were on the school board or moving forward right now, would be erring on the side of caution. If we know that there is a question or a concern that there could possibly be a problem, well, then we err on the side of caution. It's called using the precautionary principle approach. And if we have an option of something that is cancer-causing or bringing into question, we have something that's not, well, then you err and you go with the product that does not have any carcinogens. Now, I do know that there is some concern about the regulation of recycled tires because it's unregulated right now. And there's going to be some legislation introduced next year, also possibly tying the Children's Safe Product Act, which regulates toxins in children's products. However, athletic fields are exempt. So back to your question on what I would do as a board is I would revisit this. There are a number of fields, and they're all in the Edmonds School District, and they all need maintenance. And so as we go through looking at these fields, let's take a look at some of the options that are available that we know are not cancer-causing. And so that's been a lot of concern right now, and that's the approach I would take.
Okay. You know, when I was covering the issue, one thing that it made me realize, and this is a bigger question as somebody, if you're on the school board, I think, to deal with, and any governing body, there's a lot of people who just aren't aware that these kinds of decisions are being made. And one of the frustrations I heard from parents was, we didn't read the public notice section of the newspaper to know that this was happening, and we hadn't heard earlier. And, you know, parents are busy, they're raising their kids, they're often working, you know, they're exhausted at the end of the day. The last thing they're doing is paying attention, you know, for better or for worse.
Right, public meeting notices,
public meeting notices, right?
Yeah.
So what can a school board do to increase that engagement? And I guess it goes back to a bigger question too, as you talk about the increasing diversity in families maybe where English isn't their first language. You know, how do you increase that engagement? I mean, very few people come to school board meetings or city council meetings for that matter.
That's true.
People really aren't necessarily feeling like they're part of that process or don't want to be part of it. As a board member, do you have any ideas for how you might want to change
I
that?
absolutely do, and I'm really glad you asked that because that is one of the things that, as a school board member, that is your job to represent the district, the needs of the community and the policy. The particular district, District 1, is in the southeast corner. And what, as a school board member, I would do was go to where the parents are. School board members can hold forums. You can collaborate with the PTAs to possibly come in and speak and make sure that there's some extra engagement so that people do know what's going on down there. Parents are busy. So as a school board member, it's your job to make sure that you're engaging there. One of the things that I would like to do is to recognize that there is often, as you're saying, a bit of a disconnect between the policy that's being made and the needs and the wants and the desires of the community. And so having a closer engagement, go to the PTA meetings, host coffees, be more proactive on that kind of engagement is incumbent on every board member for their district so that you can represent the policies that are important to that district. And so that's what I would do. And that's my plan, is to host community forums and go to the PTAs and talk to folks.
Okay.
Find out what's important to them because this is their school district.
Yeah. Are there other issues that we haven't talked about that you think are, you know, kind of critical as you're thinking about if you were elected that you would want to address? Feel free to talk about
Sure,
those if I haven't
sure.
asked about them.
Well, I think we've talked about a lot. It's like what I'm really, three of the things that I'm really interested in is making sure that there's community involvement and the needs of the community are being addressed when the policies for the district are being implemented by the school board. That's number one. The other is the high stakes testing and is causing a lot of stress and a lot of resources that could otherwise be directed towards in-class learning. So I'm very interested in making sure that when we implement new things, like for instance, putting the Chromebooks in the schools, in the classrooms, that's wonderful, but we have to also follow through and make sure that the teachers have the resources they need to manage that kind of a classroom. And so that's where making sure that we aren't doing mandates that are a burden and we're, closely working and collaborating with the teachers. And of course, funding is a challenge. There are a lot of options with grants or community funding, and that's something that we'd want to look at as long as there were no stipulations tied with that type of money. I know that if you're going to seek out that kind of funding and grants, it's got to be for the good of all children, with no strings attached on that. Equity, we have as all school districts do, we have a homeless population of students. And we want to make sure that for all those students that don't have as much support at home, that we are making sure that we can meet their needs in whatever way possible. And part of that is going out into the community. Part of that is discussing it with those busy parents. I'm one of them, so I understand. And seeing that we can make successful engagement for each student where they are now. What was interesting is I recently was watching the Edmonds School District website, had the superintendent making a story about, well, we do really well in our school district. We've got a high graduation rate. But if you look at it like you're going on a field trip, if we go on a field trip with 100 students and we bring back 80, is that good? Well, that's good for the 80% that we brought back, but we
Right.
really need to be paying attention to that 20% we left behind.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a way of looking at it. It's like, yes, we can do better. We want to make sure everybody comes back from that field trip successfully.
Okay, those are all good, solid points. Well, now is the time for you to have an opportunity to directly address the folks who will be voting for you. And you can do that by looking into the camera and telling people any message you'd like to leave with them.
Sure. Thank you very much. My name's Carin Chase again, and I'm running for the open position on the Edmonds School Board, District 1. As I said before, I've been actively involved for the last 7 years in the school district, both as a parent, a volunteer, an educator, and an advocate for sound public policy regarding education. I would be thrilled to have your vote this November. One thing that I really think is important is the values that we bring to any kind of policy discussion. And the value I bring is the importance of each individual child is important, and we want to meet them where they are and help them succeed. I also think the way that we can achieve that is by directing more resources towards the classroom and making sure that we're paying attention to equal access and equity for all students and all families. I appreciate your support, and I look forward to engaging with you. Please visit my website, and we can talk further. Thank you.
Carin, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today, and good luck on your campaign.
Thank you very much.